Now go home and get your fucking shine box.
Attention. Do I have everybody's attention now?
Hey now. Welcome back to the Podcast Express. It's been a fun couple of weeks. Sorry we didn't get a show out last week. I was in Kauai, as everybody knew. But I had a really cool vacation, man. How was your little break from the show, Joe?
Man, I did nothing but watch wrestling the entire week you were gone. Just really spent my time at the Mae Young Classic watching all of that. Really couldn't have thought of a better way to spend it. And of course, football came back this past weekend, so that was awesome.
Yeah, man, it did. You know, I was in Kauai, and I did not watch a single ounce of pro wrestling. I was on Twitter a little bit, but I really tried to stay away from it because I was just trying to, just be in the moment there on the island, man. It's such an awesome place, such a beautiful place. So did a lot of cool things. And then I got back, and I think the first little bit of wrestling I watched was on Tuesday. I had Tuesday off, and I actually watched Raw while my wife was sleeping. So, yeah, because I still can't sleep in no matter what. Yeah. No matter what day it is, I wake up at like 6 or 7 no matter what. So, I watched Raw, and then I checked out SmackDown yesterday. Yeah. So, I think I'm all caught up. I didn't watch anything the week before, but I read The Observer last week. And I'm all caught up, man. So let's go ahead and get right into it. I checked out SmackDown, and I think the most noteworthy thing from that show is that stiff headbutt that Kevin Owens did to Vince McMahon. It's kind of setting the internet on fire right now.
Yeah, and there's talk of Vince McMahon possibly blading either during the segment or possibly before, and using a skin piece to cover it up, and then KO had to bust the skin piece open because it was very apparent they wanted blood to be a part of that segment. I mean, they got the cameras right up and close on it, but on one side of it, Vince McMahon, 72 years old, give him props for going out there and taking the bump. On another side of it, Vince McMahon, 72 fucking years old. You need, come on, man.
Yeah, he could have died, man. He doesn't like to think that he's 72 years old, so that's why he's doing shit like that, man. He's one of these old school tough guys, but come on, man.
He's in better shape than I am, and I'm 24, so I'll give him props for that. But my brain is healthier than his is. I got to imagine.
Yeah, man. That was a stiff headbutt, dude. It reminded me a little bit of the Shibata Okada headbutt that really ended Shibata's career and almost ended his life. I mean, he was in the hospital for a long time, but it looks like he'll never wrestle again. So I'm surprised that they actually took that chance and that they would actually do that. And not only do it, but now they're showing it over and over. Like, that GIF is all over the place right now.
Yeah, but on that side of things, Vince McMahon probably doesn't know or care about that happening in New Japan. And who in WWE is going to tell Vince McMahon no? I mean, there's probably one person who could say, hey, maybe this is a bad idea. That would be Triple H. But even then, if Vince McMahon wants to do it, who's going to tell him no?
Yeah, exactly. But if one guy should have said no, it should have been Kevin Owens, because if you remember, Shibata was the one that dished out the headbutt to Okada, and Okada was fine. It was Shibata that was hurt. So it wasn't. Could you imagine? It wasn't.
Could you imagine Kevin Owens' career though?
Yeah.
Where is Kevin Owens going to go in WWE if he tells Vince McMahon, "Hey, no, I'm not going to do this angle with you"?
Yeah. Well, you can say no and come up with an alternative thing to do. But it's
Vince McMahon.
But we're also saying this like it was Vince McMahon's idea. I don't think I've ever seen that in WWE, like a legit stiff headbutt like that. They're always usually worked headbutts, and given the fact that they're in a concussion lawsuit, it didn't seem like that would be an idea that Vince McMahon would have. It seemed like it was Kevin Owens' idea. Obviously, this is all speculation. We know nothing, but it seems like it would be a Kevin Owens idea because he does watch New Japan, and he thought that those spots were cool, and he thought he could do it safely. Now, to his credit, and it seems like McMahon's okay, Owens is okay. It looks like they did it safely, but it looked sick and wicked, and it was awesome. The beatdown of McMahon was awesome.
Yeah, and Vince McMahon usually, he doesn't take those beatdowns. And, well, all right, sometimes he takes them, but he ends up being the one who gets the retribution in the end. This time he's going to have to take the beat down and then let Shane fight for him. That's really not something we've seen before. And I would expect to see these more raw type of angles coming up because of how bad ratings have been and football season's back. So they're going to have to do something to keep things hot. And they've done pretty well the last few weeks. I think they're going to have to keep up these similar storylines and these similar angles.
Yeah, absolutely. They got to do something to keep ratings up. SmackDown is going to be really hurt with John Cena gone. John Cena left, and they replaced him with Bobby Roode. Now, nothing against Bobby Roode, but he's not the star that John Cena is. Maybe he could be one day, but he's not there yet, you know? So that's who you replace him with, and that's the unfortunate thing. SmackDown is really lacking on the star power side, which is why you would have to, dig Vince McMahon up and, get him out of the office and back into the ring to do an angle like this. But I gotta say, the angle worked. I'm really excited about Hell in a Cell, Matt, right now, and I wasn't before. Shane's gonna do something crazy. So, Kevin Owens at this stage in his life, I'm not gonna say anything negative about the Undertaker, but at this stage in Kevin Owens' life, he's a better worker than when Undertaker wrestled Shane in the Hell in a Cell match. So I actually think this will be a better Hell in a Cell match.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. So I think it's gonna be a pretty cool match. Going forward, and I think this angle is the sole reason as to why anybody would watch it, because before then I wasn't into it at all.
No, I mean, I like the idea of Owens versus McMahon just because I know how good of a wrestler Owens is, and Shane McMahon, he seems to always pull a good match out of his ass somehow, some way. I mean, he's a really underrated worker, so I liked that match, but Hell in a Cell as a whole wasn't too excited for, just because I kind of feel like I know what I'm going to get with Nakamura and Jinder Mahal, considering they just announced their shows in India for December, so we probably know who's going to win that match. So there was nothing else that really caught my eye, but this angle, I think, it's kind of building up the fire, and we still got a couple weeks left before that event too to kind of throw some fuel there.
Yeah, absolutely, and who knows what will happen next week. Hopefully, they don't let Shane touch Owens. Save it for Hell in a Cell. And I'm really glad that they didn't have Triple H come out and beat on Kevin Owens, because that would have totally ruined the heat that is between Shane and Kevin. And put it all onto Triple H. So I'm glad that didn't happen. So
yeah, exactly. I think that was smart on their part, and also wanting to keep Triple H out of that limelight and have his sole focus be on the Mae Young Classic, that the finals was literally right after that angle.
Yeah.
So that's where Triple H's focus and the fans' focus for Triple H needed to be.
Yeah. Speaking of which, you got a chance to watch the entire Mae Young Classic, including the finals, right?
Yeah, I watched it from start to finish. The finals was on Tuesday night. Man, it was a great tournament. I loved it.
Yeah. So give me your big takeaways. Who should we be looking for in the future? And then what did you think of the finals? Did you think the right person won?
Yeah, so I said from the beginning that Kairi Sane should win. She's a fantastic wrestler, and she is young. She's 28 years old. And not to say this is what it's about, but in WWE, this plays a factor. She's really pretty, which is something that they've looked for in their women wrestlers. I mean, look at Alexa Bliss, where she has ended up. Alexa Bliss is really pretty, so that's why she's one of the top wrestlers in WWE. Kairi Sane is really pretty. She's a fantastic wrestler, probably has the best elbow drop in the business, male or female. I mean, her elbow drop is beautiful. So yeah, I kind of picked her.
I saw a GIF of that the other day. That's the craziest fucking elbow drop I've ever seen. She's not going to be able to do that for very much longer.
I mean, I don't know.
Her body's got to give out soon, right? I mean, that's
eventually.
That's insane. Yeah.
Eventually, you would think, but yeah, she gets some hang time on it. It's absolutely gorgeous. I picked her from the beginning. A lot of people were upset at, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched it, this is your fault by this point, that Shayna Baszler was in the finals. People weren't happy about that, but if you go back and watch the tournament, it's very much deserving. Like Shayna Baszler, having only been wrestling for 2 years, her in-ring psychology is just beyond any means that she has any right to be at. I mean, she can sell a beatdown. Like after the match with Kairi Sane, she looked like she had just got done having an MMA fight. I mean, she sold the beatdown perfectly, and all throughout the tournament, she was impressive. Put on really good matches. I'd say high 3-star, maybe even 4-star matches throughout the tournament. Her and Abby Lath, who I've been a fan of. She wrestled on the indies as Kimberly and Princess Kimberly and Shikara and other events. I've really pumped her up because she wrestled Chris Hero on the indie events and had a really good match with him. Her and Shayna Baszler.
I'm sorry, I hate intergender stuff. Sorry, go ahead. I just had to get that in there. My bad.
Normally, I'm not a fan of it, but that match in particular was really good. I had a lot of fun watching it as a singles match. I mean, she suplexed Chris Hero. I mean, a guy who is probably almost 3 times her size.
Yeah,
it was just really impressive.
Which also proves that wrestling is bullshit. But
yeah,
what are you gonna do?
I mean, I'll give you that. But at this point, everybody knows wrestling is bullshit.
You might as well have Masquerita Sagrada Jr. fucking powerbomb the Big Show. Come on.
I mean, if he can lift them up, why not? But I mean, Abby Lath, I thought was probably the start, like the biggest stock pointing up, because everybody knew how good Kairi Sane was. Abby Lath has already been in NXT, and she kind of worked as a jobber. Wasn't really pushed recently, but she went out and delivered 3 really good matches from the entire Mae Young Classic. So I really liked what I seen from her. Toni Storm, the Progress Women's Champion, 21, 22 years old, another really good up-and-comer. She delivered all throughout. Really hoping to see her get in NXT. With her holding the title in Progress, it may be a while before that happens, but I would really, maybe with the exception of a match or two, I could suggest just about any match from that entire tournament as a worthwhile watch. It was fantastic.
So I'm going to say something controversial, so bear with me on this. Spoiler alert. Now, I haven't seen the tournament. I'm not going to watch it, sorry. I'm not going to watch it, but it's been my opinion for a while, and I haven't really shared this. Do wrestling fans lower their standards for women's wrestling? Meaning, if 2 men had a similar match to what Shayna Baszler and Kairi Sane had, would they think that it was a 5-star match or whatever, or would they think that it was just okay? But because it's women in there, they feel like they have to be nice and say that it was a great match?
You know, and I kind of get that point, but you also you can say that about, you know, male wrestlers too. Do you credit Brock Lesnar and Goldberg for their match, and do you lower your standards for what a good quality wrestling match is because it was a 50-year-old guy and a way past his prime Brock Lesnar?
No, I think the standards are different because they have heat in their match, and everybody's going apeshit because of the fact that these are 2 huge stars, right? So match heat and crowd heat can elevate a crappy match, absolutely. Now, so you had, case in point, you're going to have a lot of these Mae Young Classic matches, right, that if you put them on Raw, they're probably not going to be very good. But because they're in there in that arena with 200, 300 people, and they're going crazy for anything that these girls are doing and calling it the best match they've ever seen or the best tournament. Because I have read, I haven't seen any of it, but I've read mixed reports. And for the word that got out that they had to heavily edit these shows because a lot of the spots, which you can see with the women that are on Raw and SmackDown, anytime I've watched any of their matches, when they're live and they don't have the edit filter on them, they're sloppy as shit. They're constantly fucking moves up. Now, I know I'm just a fan. I've never been in the ring, so, you know, whatever. But I know what I see, and I see a lot of times it's not very good.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of the crowd heat, you can make the same argument for the Cruiserweights last year. The Cruiserweight Classic was heavily edited, where a lot of people said that if the matches that we seen weren't as edited and we got to see them live, they wouldn't have been nearly as good. And then you've taken some of the best wrestlers in the world and put them in front of a live Raw crowd, and it doesn't get over nearly as well. So you can make the same argument there.
Yeah, but a lot of those matches that have been on Raw or on the pay-per-views have been pretty good. But when you get the women out there, now, case in point, last year, Sasha Banks and Charlotte were in Hell in a Cell. That was one of the worst fucking matches I've ever seen. And nobody wanted to say that. Everybody's like, oh, this is historic. They're in a cage. That had to be one of the shittiest matches I've ever seen. They botched the finish. They botched moves all throughout the thing. Poor Sasha almost got killed 3 times during the match. And the same thing happened in their match at SummerSlam of last year, too. when they had like I can't remember but they had a match at SummerSlam, and it was the same thing. And nobody wanted to say, no, this match was actually kind of terrible. They're very fucking sloppy. It seems like they don't know what they're doing a lot of times. But hey, we got to lower our standards for them.
But then you look at WrestleMania, where they had the women's triple threat for the title. That
was very good.
And it was the highest rated match on the card.
Yeah, that was a very good match. And, Bayley and Sasha had a very good match at NXT TakeOver, I think last year or the year before. So there have been good matches. I'm not saying that. I'm saying a lot of times it seems like people tend to lower their standards for what a good match is whenever there's females in it. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, you can make that argument, but you can look at Dave Meltzer ratings too, who is probably the most. I mean, he's not going to hold his ratings for anybody based on genders, and he still rates them very highly. I think it's all what you're looking for in a match. There are some, because I guess women's wrestling kind of got held back in the 90s and early 2000s. So we're just now starting to get an actual talent pool, whereas before there was probably one or two good women's wrestlers working with, Playboy models. So we're right now starting to get a talent pool together.
Well, they're actual. I will give. They're actual athletes. They're not just whatever like models that not athletic or nothing like that. They're actual athletes that are in college sports and things like that, and they come up to pro wrestling. So I will give them that. I don't watch, so a lot of times, it's going to be hard to admit, when it's on the TV and I can fast forward it, I just do.
Yeah.
So now, the last time I saw a really, really good one, you know what? I guess I did check out Asuka versus Ember Moon, and that was pretty good. So I can't, I'm contradicting myself a lot here. It was just a thought I had. I don't know. Fuck me. What do I know?
I mean, and there are some, like, I'm still not, I love Alexa Bliss. I think she's probably the most charismatic woman on WWE's roster. But when it comes to the bell ringing, Alexa Bliss is still not a great wrestler. So there are still some people who are held back. But I would say between Charlotte, Becky, Sasha, and now Asuka being on the main roster, I think there are some women who are just very talented. Well, it depends on who they work, because the talent that you work with, you have to have somebody in there who can at least work with you and not be sloppy.
Right. And I've seen them all have good like the matches whenever Charlotte and them, they were all in NXT. Their matches were a lot better, but I guess they practiced their matches a lot before they would actually go live on pay-per-view or live on the takeover shows. And then they didn't have that safety net. So whenever they got up, they were really sloppy. Now, given all that, I still think that Charlotte is the best in the world. People will argue that it's Asuka. I think it's Charlotte. I think she's got the most star power. She's the best interview. I think she's the best athlete, and her matches are usually pretty decent. So that's just my perspective, I guess, from the outside looking in. I don't get really invested in women's wrestling. So.
Yeah, and like I said, I think it's still a growing process. But again, with that being said, the Asuka and Ember Moon match, which you did say you liked, was probably the best women's match I've watched. And from that, I see women's wrestling only getting better over the next couple of years, especially with the young talent pool we got to see in the Mae Young Classic.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully it does. Hopefully they don't, add any more bimbos. I'm not a fan of Alexa Bliss, so I like, athletes, I guess, and I like it to look like a fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's what Shayna Baszler is going to add.
Yeah. Now, Shayna Baszler has been wrestling less than 2 years, because 2 years ago I met her in Afghanistan, and she was still an MMA fighter at that point and was looking to get back in the UFC. And she was telling us, we were like in a big group, and she was I asked her about pro wrestling. And she was like, well, no, I'd love to, blah, blah, blah. I've trained with Josh Barnett, but, I haven't really gotten into it. So she's like less than 2 years into being a pro wrestler, and she's already really good. She's got some stuff to work on, Yeah. But I think she's close, and I think she'll be in a big program soon, because it looks like, Ronda Rousey is going to be in sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, she's training with Brian Kendrick, and there's really only one reason to do that.
Yeah. I'm thinking it's going to be a Survivor Series thing, especially because both brands can be represented on that pay-per-view, and so they could do the 4 horsewomen versus the 4 horsewomen. Now, the only problem is, other than Shayna Baszler on the Ronda Rousey side, none of them know how to be a pro wrestler. They haven't really had any experience. Like, they can train in the gym with Brian Kendrick all they want, but it's a whole different animal once they get out there. So maybe they'll give the, Charlotte, Becky, Sasha, and Bailey, maybe they'll give them some time off to go work out a match for like a month or something. But I don't know, man. That might be a rough match to watch.
Yeah, it's a risky move. I would probably have the other two, and forgive me, like I'm not going to remember the other two from the MMA side outside of Baszler and Rousey. Was it Jessamine Duke, and who would be the fourth one?
Marina Shafir.
Yeah. I would probably have them get eliminated pretty early and let Baszler and Rousey carry the match. I think Rousey needs to be there just for star power, and Jessamine probably to carry the match quality. Well, and I wouldn't expect anything too fantastic from it, and I would probably do a shorter 15-20 minute match.
Well, and they got to end it with a face-to-face with Charlotte and Ronda Rousey. I think that's your money match.
Yeah, I think that's probably the bigger draw there.
Yeah, unless they go
come out.
So people are saying they might go with Stephanie, but if they do that, it would have to be all kind of character driven and kind of Stephanie being the smarmy heel and Ronda Rousey
Stephanie's
chasing her.
not a good wrestler.
No,
she's not. I think she's not like Shane McMahon.
I think just having Rousey on the show, they can make it an athletic contest with Charlotte, because Charlotte cannot beat up Rousey in a real fight, but athletically is probably on par with Ronda Rousey.
Well, I mean, we haven't seen Charlotte's boxing now, so let's not take anything away from her.
Yeah, well, I mean, if she's got a good jab, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
she's definitely bigger. She's probably about 6 feet tall, so maybe she might have, if she has a head kick like Holly Holm, maybe she can do some damage. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Rousey has a glass chin. We've all seen it.
Yeah. Well, she does now anyway. Man, holy crap, her career went into the toilet quick.
Right.
Yeah. But, bringing her in, I think that's a good move, man. She's a huge star still. People are doubting whether or not she's going to actually do some damage. I think that there's going to be a lot of subscriptions for WWE Network coming over from her fans, because you have UFC fans, then you have casual fans, and then you have Ronda Rousey fans, which are these women that watch Ellen and Oprah and shit during the day, and this women's power movement and stuff like that. I think that's going to bring them over into that WWE. And if WWE treats their women seriously on this show, they might actually get some more of those people to watch.
Yeah, and I think I've said it before on the show, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I really believe Ronda Rousey would be the first big woman crossover to compete in the ring, in terms of actual competitors. Like, we've had Maria Menounos and, fucking Snooki did it. but Rousey would clearly be the biggest and the most legitimate in terms of, the men. They had, Lawrence Taylor back in the day. Mike Tyson didn't wrestle a match, but got physical.
Yeah. And
so the women have never had that.
No, I don't think they have. I think that would be the first, like, huge crossover star to do that. So that'd be a very big deal. And something else I thought was going to be a big deal, but after watching Raw this week, I think that it's kind of dying out, and that's the Cena Reigns feud. Am I just missing something? Because this week the whole promo between those two seemed weak. Now the original promo was awesome, right? The going back and forth, but now it just seems weak. And then Cena got his ass kicked by Strowman.
Yeah,
and now he's looking weak. So it's I don't see this as big a match as I first thought it was going to be.
Well, they still have one more week to build it up. I mean, you can't have it be 100% go all the time. It had to die down a little bit, but I still think it's going to come off huge at No Mercy. And I'll give Roman some credit, because he's not witty. And he's clearly not like a Kevin Owens or a John Cena where he can have a solid comeback. But I think it was this past week where John Cena made a comment about Reigns coming out with his fly down. Just being stupid John Cena. And Roman Reigns looked at him and said, "I actually busted open. Big dog, remember?" And that's the funniest thing Roman Reigns has ever said on TV. Yeah. That he probably came up with that by himself. Hopefully he came up.
Right.
I really hope they didn't have him pull his fly down just to set up that line. But if he came up with it by himself, that's the funniest thing he's ever said.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, I guess, I didn't even catch that. So there you go. And I watched the whole thing, but I guess I didn't notice that part. So
yeah,
good on him for that. But he seems to rely on, you're a bitch ass. Like, dude, come on. That's some,
he's
that's
not,
some
he's
junior,
not charismatic.
Right. That's some junior high shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's putting him in a war on the mic is not going to do him any favors. I mean, there's very few guys who can stand to John Cena on the mic. It's probably The Miz and The Rock and maybe Kevin Owens. I'd probably be the only three I put in that category. So that's not going to be Roman Reigns' strong point, but I think he's held up okay. He hasn't completely embarrassed himself. He did, forget his lines in the initial week, but I think he rebounded nicely towards the end once he got a little bit more fired up. I mean, maybe it died off a little bit, but they still have this final week to promote it. I think it's going to be huge. If they book the match right, I think this could be the best thing for Roman Reigns' career since he's been kind of shed on by fans. I think this could be big for him.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm really looking forward to it, mainly because I want to watch Strowman and Lesnar. I think that's going to be awesome. And we didn't talk about it because I wasn't here last week. The Strowman and Big Show cage match was fucking great. I got a chance to check that out. I watched like a 5-minute YouTube clip of it, but that was pretty cool. And him slamming him through the cage, I thought was awesome. So No Mercy is looking to be a big show, and we'll have like a full rundown of that pay-per-view next week. Now, what I wanted to talk about, speaking of Strowman, Cena and Strowman, I just said before, Strowman killed Cena. I just don't understand why they did it. I know they're trying to pop ratings, but they couldn't have thought that it was going to be that huge because they didn't even do it for the main event. They had to go on at 9:30 or something like that, 9:45. So I just don't understand why they did it. And then they did a DQ finish thinking that maybe it makes both guys look strong, but no. They did a DQ finish because Strowman kicked the shit out of Cena. So I just thought the whole thing was just a bad idea. They didn't need to do it. That could be something they do down the road. But instead, they just kind of gave it away. I just don't get it.
Yeah, I really don't understand the logic of booking there, because if you decide to do Reigns versus Lesnar, which apparently is still the plan for WrestleMania, you still have two huge stars that you need to do something with on WrestleMania. So you could have saved Strowman versus Cena for that. I don't understand the logic of booking it on Raw. I mean, even if you don't want to do it at Mania, you have Survivor Series, Royal Rumble. I mean, you got several big pay-per-views that you're going to need big draws for. So why put it on Raw, and why have it as generic as it came off to be? There's no logic to it. Yeah,
there's nothing really about... I mean, I liked what they did with Roman Reigns and Jason Jordan. I think they should have done something like that. Instead, they fed Cena to Strowman, and Strowman's supposed to look strong, and he needs to, and he did. But Cena didn't look strong at all. I don't know. I didn't really get the whole thing. They're just trying their best to keep ratings up, but ratings are still dipping because it's football season, right? Ratings, you're not going to beat Monday Night Football. There's no way.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
I mean, Monday Night Football is going to do 20 million viewers every week, and that's going to be a disappointing viewership. Like that's just the landscape of television right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there was another segment on Raw that I thought was kind of interesting, and some people are heaping praise on it, but I'm about to shit on the thing. And I'm usually the guy that kind of sticks up for Enzo, but the Miz Enzo thing was not very good. I didn't think. I thought they were just trying to do a shoot promo for the sake of doing a shoot promo. And it's not really going to lead anywhere. And then the match they had afterwards was fucking garbage. Like, both guys looked awful in that match. Neither of them were very clever or cute or funny. And then the whole thing, so they open it up and they announce that they're having a fucking baby. Right? That was going to be my who gives a shit, but I didn't want to be an asshole, right? Like that was original. I deleted it before you saw the notes, and I actually put on what I put on. It was going to be Maurice is having a baby, but I was like, no, that's a miracle, blah blah blah,
Yeah.
But so they announced that they're having a baby, and then they're supposed to be bad guys, like right out. They're supposed to stay heels after this big, like, glorious announcement that everyone's supposed to be happy about. So they have Enzo come out and be a total douchebag, and then he basically cuts a promo on him straight out of the Wrestling Observer that most of that audience didn't even read. Like, most people don't know that he was kicked off the tour bus, right? So we talked about it because we're fucking dorks and this is what we do. But most people don't know that. So they're doing that, just trying to, like, I don't know, just try to be controversial, but it just came off lame. I don't know. What did you think?
I thought it was just a way to shit on Enzo, which apparently they might have another reason to hate Enzo Amore, because down in NXT, they have a woman wrestler down there that they really like, Liv Morgan, who is young. She's green, but she has, you know, potential, and she's pretty, and she also just happened to be dating Enzo Amore. And recently Enzo Amore cheated on her, and Triple H takes care of his NXT people. So honestly, the timing of it, I really think it was just another way to try to embarrass Enzo. They wanted to shit on Enzo and let the crowd know, hey, everybody behind the scenes hates this guy. Here's how bad they hate him. They kicked him off the tour bus. They kicked him out of the locker rooms.
Right.
Like, why are you cheering for this guy? Because here's what everybody really thinks of him. Yeah. I think that was the logic behind it.
And for everybody that says that Dave Meltzer just makes shit up, I think this promo validates Dave Meltzer in a huge way, because people were denying that story. They're saying it wasn't true, and then sure enough, they come out, and then they just use it as a storyline. Of course it was fucking true. He doesn't just make stuff up. Like, people back there tell him this stuff, and then he writes it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And, I mean, sometimes, like any reporter, like he'll miss on something here or there, but shit happens. One thing I will say, I wish they wouldn't have done the Enzo Amore segment after this, but the baby announcement, I understand why WWE would wanted it on TV, because, again, Vince McMahon's going to want all the good press he can get, because now there will be people, you know, this will be a big Twitter story. There'll be magazines and websites who will cover this part of the story. I do think it was really cool that they didn't let anybody backstage know what was going to happen. Looking on the real side of things, that those people are probably with each other more than they're with their own families. That was probably a nice moment for everybody backstage to get to be a part of that. So kudos to them for that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't care. Sorry. You know, baby's probably going to be a douchebag. Who knows? All right. Speaking of douchebags, I'm trying to get my transitions a little better this week. Speaking of douchebags, John Jones, Captain Dipshit. Yeah, Captain Dipshit. As we all know, 2 weeks ago he got suspended, or not suspended. He tested positive for Turinabol, an anabolic steroid. And it came out today or yesterday that his B sample has also tested positive for Turinabol. He's been stripped of his title. And Daniel Cormier is the new light heavyweight champion. So he finally beat up on John Jones. How do you like that, man?
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Hey, fuck it. DC deserves a title. I'm glad he got it back. Fuck John Jones.
What really pisses me off is John Jones today on Twitter came out and said, I'm paraphrasing here, but it's almost an exact quote. I swear on my kids and the Lord above me that I would never take steroids. Today, he said that.
Yeah, I quoted that tweet.
You tested positive multiple times.
Right.
Don't fucking swear on your kids.
Yeah, and don't blaspheme. Lightning will strike down on him, dude. I mean, come on.
Yeah, John Jones he's probably the biggest piece of shit in UFC. And that's saying something when the company is ran by Dana White, who's one of the biggest pieces of shits in America. Yeah,
I mean, there have been guys. There's a guy right now in prison for the rest of his life because he beat the shit out of his girlfriend. A guy named War Machine. I think John Jones is worse than War Machine.
I mean,
that's
it's probably closer than it should be. But.
Right. No, that's a stretch. But yeah, man, that whole thing just sucks. I just feel bad for Daniel Cormier because they're never going to look at him as the legit light heavyweight champion ever again.
No, and the only guy he's lost to is John Jones, and
he fucking
John Jones was on drugs both times.
Yeah. So the first time you can't prove the first time that he was on steroids. Yeah,
but his testosterone levels were higher.
Did that come out? I don't remember hearing that.
It did.
Really?
Yeah. After the fight, after John Jones tested positive for cocaine, in an interview, I'm pretty sure it was with Ariel Helwani, Cormier, was talking about the cocaine use and said, also, let's not forget about, his testosterone levels being a little bit higher than normal. But everybody kind of ignored that because of the cocaine, and then not long after that was the hit and run and everything that kind of just snowballed. So it wasn't like extremely high, like Chael Sonnen's would have been, but they were higher. So
wow, yeah,
there's something there, and I think that was before USADA, if I'm not mistaken. That was before USADA. So
yeah, it was. It definitely was. Yeah, man. I don't know. That guy, he's such a disappointment. I was such a big fan of his. I loved watching him fight. I was super stoked about this last fight. I thought it was a really good fight. He looked amazing. He came out afterwards, was just an awesome guy, and then he just fucking blew it up, man. He blew everything.
I mean, we'll still call it a promo because we're wrestling nerds, but the promo he had afterwards, it was the first time where I thought, shit, I want to get behind John Jones now. Like I want this guy to succeed. He said all the right things. Mm-hmm. And then lo and behold, like, none of it was true.
Yeah.
I mean, like, looking back now, of all the huge names that really built up UFC to the most popular combat sports in the world, most of them have come out to be pretty big cheats now. I mean, Chael Sonnen was one of the bigger names. He tested positive. Anderson Silva, even though late in his career, he still tested positive, which there's no telling, how clean he would have been before heavy testing. I mean, Brock Lesnar tested positive. He really helped build up the heavyweight division. John Jones tested positive. Like, how clean was this sport ever real? Like, there's a reason GSP walked away.
Yeah. And people were rumoring that he was on it for a long time. So, who knows, man? I hope that he was the clean one. I know for a fucking fact that Diaz brothers ain't doing that shit.
No, I mean, they're too busy smoking weed.
Yeah, that's what they were getting in trouble for, and that's not an enhancer. You know what I mean? So, although they would argue that it is, I don't know. They could smoke a joint and go kick somebody's ass. I don't know too many people that could do that though. So
yeah, no, I mean, maybe I don't know. Is there any like weight benefits that it might help with? Like, does it speed up your metabolism? I don't know anything.
No. In fact, it probably slows it down and it makes you hungrier. So
yeah, well, I know it makes you hungrier, but like everybody I know who smokes weed is like pretty skinny somehow. Yeah. Like, and they're eating all the time.
I haven't smoked weed in fucking forever, so I have no idea. So we got
all of our weed friends hit us up and let us know. Does it speed up your metabolism?
I think this is where the garbage time points guys can weigh in, because they're fucking high for every episode, it seems.
Yeah,
at least that's what I think when I listen to them. I was like, motherfucker, you must be high. Speaking of garbage time, guys, we weren't on the show this week, but they went ahead and they talked about Canelo and Triple G. I think we're going to go and touch on that a little bit. We're not boxing experts. I have been watching my whole life, but I'm not invested in boxing like I am MMA or pro wrestling. But I'm excited for this fight. I wasted my money on the McGregor Mayweather, so I will not be purchasing this. And that was one of Mike's pet peeves, one of the reasons why he was so pissed. So XWT is going to be my friend on this. They actually do upload boxing matches, so that's I'll be watching it Sunday morning before the NFL countdown shows. So who do you got, Joe, man? I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to watch it, and we'll be on with Garbage Time next week to talk about it. So who do you got?
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is the same thing I did for Mayweather and McGregor. And I'm just going to go through Twitter and find a nice little friend who will post the link for me, and I'll just watch the whole thing from my phone as it happens. I'm going Canelo here.
Canelo?
Nice. More so because I think he is coming off as the bigger name, and I think it's just better for boxing if he wins.
Yeah, he's definitely the bigger name right now. I think Triple G has not been tested yet. He was tested in his last fight, but I think he took his last fight. I don't think he took it very seriously. I think he was overlooking the guy. So I think that I'm going to go Triple G here. I think Triple G's power is going to be too much for him. But, man, Canelo's got some power too. And it looks like Andy Dalton. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, though. Like, gingers don't have souls.
Ooh, that is true.
So, I mean, he's going to walk in there. He's probably not going to feel a thing.
Yeah.
And I will say this. He's, I think, the first boxer I've seen in a TV commercial for as long as I can remember. I seen him in a beer commercial the other day on NBC.
Oh, so, no, dude, boxers have been in commercials forever, man.
Yeah, but
Mike Tyson, Holyfield, George Foreman.
But that's well before my time. I was barely walking when those guys were in commercials.
Oh.
So Well, right, taking away George Foreman, who has the George Foreman grill.
Well, De La Hoya is in commercials. Mayweather was always in commercials. But Mayweather, I think he was in some, but he didn't get a lot of endorsements because you can't endorse that guy because of his mouth and his actions.
Yeah. I mean, getting a little sidetracked, did you see his Real Men talk today?
Dude,
Sports Illustrated.
I should have known he was a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
Not to be political on the show, but Mayweather seems like a Trump supporter.
Yeah, I mean, for people who haven't seen it, if you ever needed a reason to think that Floyd Mayweather is a bigger piece of shit than you originally thought, he said that Trump's quote of women letting you grab them right in the pussy is how real men talk. Yeah. Because Floyd Mayweather, a woman abuser, knows how real men talk. Yeah. Apparently, he
would have a lot in common with Trump, though. That makes sense. So
yeah. They are both huge pieces of shit.
Well, we don't talk politics on the show, so strike that from the record.
I was just talking as, just in general
human being. We're not talking about we're not talking about policies. We're just talking about people. Yeah.
Yeah. We're not talking about President Trump. We're talking about Donald Trump.
Right. That would say something horrendous like that. And just so as everybody knows, that's not how guys really talk. Come on.
No. We're sort of respectful sometimes.
Yeah. Anyway,
back to important stuff.
Yeah, back to important stuff. Yeah, you know what? I think I'm officially on the record. We can go ahead and mark it down. I'm going to pick Triple G in this fight. But I don't do that with a whole lot of confidence based off of his last fight. However, the dude is dangerous. He's got a lot of power. And I'm really looking forward to this fight. I'm not going to pay for it because I'm a shithead. But I'll be watching it on Sunday morning. I guess you'll be watching it Saturday night on Twitter.
Hopefully, and if worse comes to worse, I'll have XWT loaded up and ready to go.
Yeah. I was gonna move this down to quick hits here on my list, but I just thought this was interesting. New Japan had a poorly rated show.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and for everybody who says that Meltzer is biased. Because obviously when you say ratings, people think him first, which there are other people who do ratings, but the highest match on their most recent card was, I think, 3 1/4. Yeah. I mean, it was pretty bad.
Yeah, so the New Japan Destruction in Fukushima show, it got a 16% thumbs up, a 66.9% thumbs down, and 16.9% thumbs in the middle. I just thought that was fascinating, and the best match was Naito and Takahashi versus Ospreay and Ishii. So I was actually gonna watch it because I was really looking forward to seeing Suzuki versus Michael Elgin. I'm just fascinated by Suzuki, but apparently that match was shit. So I will not be watching this show. Thank you to the Wrestling Observer readers and to Dave himself for letting us know just how horrible this is. Because every time they rate a New Japan show, they're usually spot on. I never go into it, or I never come out. I usually go into it thinking, oh, they're just probably like overhyping this or overranking it, and then I come out of it and I'm like, wow, no, that was really fucking good. I'm glad that I watched that. So, and I usually skip all the 6-mans and 8-mans that they have in the beginning and just kind of watch the main matches. And so I was going to do that with this one and mainly just pay attention to Suzuki and Michael Elgin, but apparently it was just a shit show. So, yeah, not going to be doing that, man. So
yeah, I was just saying, I'm right there with you. I usually, because there's so much fucking wrestling out there right now, outside of WWE, I usually look for just like Wrestling Observer and other wrestling fans on their opinions, and that's usually what I go watch in my free time. So thank you to everybody who reported on that being a shit show, because I probably would have watched it. After G1, I got really interested in Michael Elgin, so I wanted to check out that match too, but really glad I didn't take the time and suffer through it.
Yeah. All right, so let's get to some UFC news. Dana White is a liar. So the Mayweather-McGregor match is going to do 4.6 million buys. Probably give or take a little bit there. There's going to be some fluctuation, but those are the projections. And Dana White was saying that it was going to do 6 million.
Yeah.
Dana White's a liar.
Dana White's a liar.
Yeah, but I still think that beats the not the De La Hoya, but the Pacquiao McGregor or Pacquiao Mayweather fight. I think that does beat it because Pacquiao Mayweather was 4 million buys, right?
I think it was 4.6 million in total, and I think the Mayweather McGregor might do like 4.6 or 4.4 or 4.6 North American, with a few thousand or 100,000 expected to come in from like Ireland and the UK.
I think UK did 1 million.
Okay.
So maybe to his credit, let's give him some credit here. He might actually be factoring in the worldwide number. Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe.
So maybe with the worldwide number, and you get all the online buys and buys on the UFC.tv app. Maybe. I mean, that's where I bought it, was UFC.tv on I think on Amazon Prime or Roku or something like that. So, maybe it is gonna be 6 million worldwide. So, I mean, he's still a liar. Don't get me wrong, but he could actually be right about this now that I think about it.
Yeah, well, and I wouldn't say he's right. He probably just threw out 6 million as his own opinion without looking at numbers.
Right,
I mean,
right.
He's still a liar.
Yeah, definitely. And it looks like the pay-per-view generated about $615 million. That's fucking insane for one match, one night.
Yeah, you legitimately could have only had that match and it would have still done the same. I mean, no one gave a shit about anything else that was happening that night.
I honestly,
the fans in attendance didn't care.
Yeah, I watched the undercard. Right now, like, hand to God, like, you put a gun to my head, I couldn't tell you who fought in the undercard. Couldn't do it.
Yeah.
There was one of the fights where I had two midget fighters going at it, and one of the guys looked cool, I guess, and the other guy was like punching him in the head and stuff. It was pretty cool. But
we don't get enough midgets in combat sports.
Well,
I mean, that's just a random thought.
Well, one of yours is going to be on your Who Gives a Shit. We won't, no spoilers. we'll get to that in a minute. So man, $615 million for that fight. That's fucking insane. So if anybody questions as to why they did it, and they're thinking it was a bad idea, you look at those numbers. You can't really argue with those numbers, man. You can't do it.
It's close to $1 billion for what officially amounted to 30 minutes of work.
30 minutes, yeah. Because it didn't seem like either of them trained very hard. So yeah, 30 minutes, man, and the heist of the century.
It's just insane. I would imagine it's going to be a long time before that's touched by anything.
Oh yeah. And Canelo Triple G is not even coming close to that number.
No,
people are saying,
are they doing a $60 buy?
Yeah, I think it's regular buy. I think that they may get. I'm going to ballpark it, 1.5 million.
Yeah.
So that's my estimate. I'm still sticking by my prediction that McGregor's next UFC fight will beat the Canelo Triple G fight. I still believe that. So. Yeah,
especially if it's against Diaz.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The Diaz fight will do 2 million easy.
Yeah.
All right, so UFC 215 was this weekend, and the main event was supposed to be Ray Borg, some guy they found against Moose Johnson. And it was canceled. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But on the undercard, I was taking a look at it, and I was like, wow, you know what? The undercard actually had some fucking good fights. So they had Jeremy Little Heathen Stevens versus Gilbert Melendez in a featherweight fight. That's very intriguing. Apparently, it was not that. It was a pretty good fight, but apparently it was pretty one-sided. And Stevens beat him on scores of 30-26, 30-26, and 30-25. He tore up his leg pretty early, and it was pretty vicious, man. Have you seen those pictures online of Gilbert Melendez's leg?
I haven't yet, and honestly, I didn't even know that guy was still fighting. He seems like he's been around forever.
He's been around a long time, but I think he's like 32 years old. So he's actually not that old. He's just been around forever. So, and same with Stevens. Like, they're both about the same age. I guarantee they're both under 35. But yeah, no, they've been around forever. Melendez, he dropped to featherweight, which he did not look good at featherweight. I think he needs to go back up to lightweight. But apparently it was a really good fight. Jeremy Stevens beat Gilbert Melendez. And then you got, two guys I never heard of. Oh, Henry Cejudo beat Wilson Hayes. Henry Cejudo is a 125-pounder. He lost to Demetrius Johnson last year by knockout. One of the first knockouts I've ever seen from Johnson. So he beat him. And Rafael Dos Anjos beat Neil Magny with a choke. So I was pretty shocked at that result. I thought that if Dos Anjos is going to win, it's going to be by decision. But Neil Magny is a lot bigger than him, so I figured Magny would actually take him down and just kind of hold on to him a little bit. But nope, Dos Anjos beat him, man. What do you think about Dos Anjos? It looks like that Dos Anjos could actually fight Robbie Lawler, and the winner of that fight could go on to fight Tyron Woodley for the title.
Yeah, I've been a big fan of Dos Anjos. I've seen him have some just absolute violent fights in the past. him fighting Robbie Lawler would be really interesting. And I hope Robbie Lawler would come out on top of that again, because I think he is a better fight for Tyrone Woodley in the future. I think, honestly, Robbie Lawler could go out there and knock him out and really make Woodley work. I would really like to see Dos Anjos versus Robbie Lawler, though. Hopefully, because very few fights I'm going to pay $50 for in UFC anymore. I guess it's 60 now. Hopefully they would put that on like Fox or Fox Sports 1. That way I could watch it for free and not have to worry about pirating it.
Yeah,
it would be a good one.
Yeah, or on the undercard of McGregor's next fight. I think that'd be a good idea. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I mean, that'll probably come up in like December or January, so the time frame really fits where Dos Anjos could have 3 or 4 months off before stepping into the octagon again, so I'd be fine with that.
Yeah. And then Amanda Nunes beat Valentina Shevchenko via split decision, and apparently Shevchenko was really pissed off about it, man. She did not think she lost, but everybody else thought she lost, so, and it was a shit show apparently. So
yeah. According to the reports I read, because I didn't watch the fight. I had no plans to watch UFC 215. I had no plans to watch UFC 216. I haven't been impressed with the cards they've been putting together, but in terms of how close the fight was, if you're a fan of just close fights and good technical fighting, I guess, it was good. But if you like action, which is what 99% of Ultimate Fighting fans like, then this was not the fight for you, because there was not a whole lot of action in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of fights coming up this weekend, we got Luke Rockhold versus Dave Branch. Dave Branch was the former light heavyweight and middleweight champion of World Series of Fighting, and he's coming back to UFC, and he's going to take on Luke Rockhold. Rockhold's the former UFC middleweight champion who lost in a fluke to Michael Bisping. And if Rockhold wins this one, he's most likely going to get the next title shot. Well, I take that back. Robert Whittaker has the next in line, but he'll probably fight Yoel Romero, maybe. Or Jacare. Maybe Jacare. Maybe he fights Jacare. I don't know. But
I think Rockhold said he's preparing to fight Bisping in November because he doesn't think that GSP is actually going to show up.
That could be too. I don't think this is a good fight for for GSP. So, man, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I like Rockhold. I think both guys having a full camp, I'd like to see Rockhold versus Bisping. I mean, I think that would be a fun fight.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, they fought twice before, and both fights were pretty... Well, the second fight was just, it was about a couple minutes long, and Bisping got a lucky punch on him. But, yeah, man, you never know. Jesse Taylor. Jesse Taylor is the most recent winner of The Ultimate Fighter, and he was on The Ultimate Fighter a long time ago. I want to say season 8. I could be wrong. Chances are I'm wrong. And he was about to win that one, and he ended up getting kicked off the show for getting into trouble. And he just recently won the latest season of The Ultimate Fighter, and he popped for roids or something. But so he won the Ultimate Fighter Redemption. And I did not watch the season, but I love that concept, and that was the concept that I was trying to bring to WWE, if any of them listened to the show. But that was what I was harping on the last episode, was the WWE Redemption series was based off of the Ultimate Fighter version of that. And the guy that won it is going to be gone because he popped for roids. What a dipshit.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to have WWE shoot down your master idea, because they probably don't want to go through the same thing.
Yeah.
Honestly, man, I used to watch every season of The Ultimate Fighter, and I used to be really hardcore into it. But the last season I watched was when Uriah Hall was on there and lost to Kelvin Gastelum. I haven't watched the season since. I just couldn't get into it anymore.
Yeah, that was a long time. The last season I watched was the Uriah Faber, Conor McGregor season.
Yeah, I feel like the show, like, there's been good fights on there, but I mean, I feel like it's been a long time since it's actually produced a star. I mean, I know there's a few out there. I don't know. I haven't seen legitimate stars come from that show. I think Gastelum has the potential to be, but he can't get his weight issues and his conditioning under control to find a weight class that he can be competitive in. Uriah Hall has all the talent in the world, but he apparently doesn't want to be a fighter. I mean, even on the show, he talked about not wanting to hurt people, which is the opposite of how you're supposed to feel if you're fighting in the UFC.
Yeah, that's literally his job.
Yeah, your job is to hurt the person in front of you. And he had like a heart-to-heart with Chael Sonnen about being wanting to win the fight without hurting his opponent. It's like, you can't have that mindset, and I think that's something that holds him back in his MMA career. So after that, and after realizing just very few. It's kind of like Tough Enough, to where there was some good episodes, but nothing was ever really coming of it in the long run.
Yeah, man. Conor McGregor is getting sued because he threw monster cans at the Diaz brothers and he hit a fan in the head. Now, I just found this interesting because the fan, we're not going to say his name, but he claims that he had a $5,000 medical bill. So he was suing for $95,000.
Do you have the formula up in front of you of how he got that number?
No.
Oh, man. I wish we would have thought of that before the show. He had some of just like the craziest dumbass formula up. It was like based on the number of punches thrown in the fight divided by the medical bills and like the time of the fight. Like it was the most ridiculous thing ever. Okay,
hold on. This is what Dave said. In an attempt at logic that I have no clue how this could possibly hold up in court, the $95,000 figure came because the estimated McGregor earned $15 million in the fight and was hit by Diaz 166 times. And they divided $15 million by 166, which is 90,361. And the $95K comes from that figure plus 5,000 medical bills. That's the biggest load of horseshit I've ever heard in my life.
How does that make any sense whatsoever?
What the fuck, man? Hey, man, if you can get it, go for it. But, McGregor sure ain't hurting for money. He ain't going to sweat $95K. So if you can get it from the guy, go for it, I guess, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or just don't be a bitch.
Right.
Yeah. Obviously, the guy's okay, so probably got a knot on his head.
$5,000 of hospital bills, that's nothing. I'm pretty sure that's like 3 ibuprofen in a hospital now.
Yeah, absolutely. Until Bernie gets his way. Sorry, that was another political talk. We don't talk politics on the show. So, Joanna Jędrzejczyk is going to fight Rose Namajunas at Madison Square Garden for UFC 217 on the undercard of Bisping and GSP. I think that's a really interesting fight, and I think Jędrzejczyk's going to beat the fuck out of her.
Yeah, and I will say that will probably be one of maybe 3 UFC cards this calendar year that I'll purchase.
Absolutely, that's going to be a great card.
Yeah, I plan on spending money on that. We'll probably break out the projector and do it big. I think, is there 3 title fights that night?
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so if you're going to spend your money on UFC, that's probably the one to go for.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that UFC in the coming weeks as we get closer to it. But yeah, that fight was just officially announced, so I wanted to bring that up here. Global Force Wrestling. So last week, we weren't here, and a lot of news and a bunch of controversy broke out about Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett has taken a leave of absence. It kind of came out in Sports Illustrated that he was being fired, but no, he's taking a leave of absence. He's got some issues with booze, I guess, and we know a lot of people that have some of those issues, so we're not going to hold anything against him. But he, I guess he was shit-faced at Triple Mania not that long ago and was starting some shit backstage with people. But Ed Nordholm, the CEO of Global Force Wrestling, had him take a leave of absence. He's got a new creative team in there, and but it looks like he's going to eventually be back. There was also a rumor that Global Force was up for sale, and apparently that is also not true. Ed Nordholm did an interview on Wrestling Observer Radio and basically shot down everything. And typically you don't believe guys when they say stuff like this, but I'm going to go ahead and believe him on this one because he sounded really sincere, and he made a really good case for himself because they're actually starting the Global Wrestling Network. And it was live for like a night this week. They accidentally launched it early, and people were able to get onto it for free and watch the videos that they had put up there. But they're going to start a streaming service, kind of like WWE Network, but it's going to be $7.99, and it's going to have their content plus content from AAA, The Crash, and Noah in Japan. So I'm not going to pay for it, but I think some people will, but maybe not a lot of people. So he was basically saying that like he wasn't going to sell the rights to his content because he is in the content business, meaning he's from the Fight Network and they have GFW on their shows, and then they're creating that new streaming service. So it wouldn't make any sense at all for him to get rid of GFW at this point. But he says they are losing money. And so they're going to try to tighten the belt and try to create revenue any way they can. So it looks like Global Force is not going anywhere, meaning they're not going to they're either not going to go out of business and they're not going to get any better probably.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to like staying on Pop TV really limits what revenue they can have coming in. I'm probably not going to pay for their network, but there is talk of them wanting to have basically every wrestling promotion that's not WWE on it in some way, shape, or form.
Kind of what that Flow Slam stuff was, right?
Yeah. If they work out a way, if it's functioning, which is the biggest part of it, because I believe Flow Slam had some issues of being, functioning properly. If they're functioning properly, if the app works, if the stream works, and if they could land some content from Ring of Honor and or New Japan, which I feel like will be hard to do because they do have their own stuff going on. But if they were to get one of those or both on there, at that rate, I might spend $7.99 on it, because I'm not a huge Global Force fan. I mean, I've checked out a few things here or there, but not enough to want to spend money on it. I would like to watch a little bit of AAA, but I'm not going to watch it consistently. But I do keep up with Ring of Honor and New Japan enough to where if it was easily accessible all on one platform where you have multiple wrestling companies, I might consider it at that point. And I think that's the hope for wrestling fans in general. That's the hope for Anthem, that if they get enough on there, enough variety, then more fans will buy in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if they do get New Japan and Ring of Honor, I would say count me in. That's an easy $7.99 for me. I would do that, absolutely. And if they showed the pay-per-views on there for free like WWE Network does, I would see why wouldn't you do it, right? I mean, why not? Absolutely. Alberto is an asshole. And he's coming back to Global Force, like we said. He's going to be at Bound for Glory. Don't know what he's doing yet, though. Also, Rey Mysterio Jr., he is not signing with Global Force. I guess that deal fell through. Apparently had something to do with the way they're treating some Lucha Libre guys, so who knows. But he's not coming in, so what are you going to do?
Hopefully, I mean, just go back to WWE. I mean, they need, even though Rey's towards the back end of his career, he's still a name, especially in a demographic that they're trying to reach heavily. So go ahead and bring them in. Put them on. They'll probably put them on Raw. It makes sense for both sides. Yeah,
absolutely. Some more WWE news. We got an injury report for you. This injury report is brought to you by me. All right. Then Big Show, he's having hip surgery. He's getting up there in age, so that makes sense. I think that's why they killed him off with the Braun Strowman match. But hey, if that is, and people are saying that might be his last match. If it was, kudos to him. That was an awesome match. He went out on top, I think. So in the main event against one of their top guys, had a really good match. So good for Big Show. I haven't always been a big fan of his matches, but I'm a big fan of him personally, and he was super nice to me in Afghanistan. So I wish nothing but the best for him. Mick Foley, although he's not a member of WWE anymore, he still will always be WWE. He had a knee replacement. He's tweeted out some pictures and did some blog posts on that. So hopefully he's going to heal up quick. Same thing with Ric Flair. Looks like Ric Flair's doing a lot better. He tweeted out a picture of him doing an interview with People magazine. Styling and profiling, man. He was in a suit looking good. And actually earlier today, I guess Charles Barkley came and visited him in his rehab center. So that was cool. He tweeted out a picture of him and Charles Barkley. And looks like Charlotte and Ric Flair have a book coming out. It's kind of a joint autobiography. So I'm not going to read it, but if somebody does read it, shout us out. Let us know if it's any good. Give us a report on it. We'd love to hear about it. Asuka, she's joining Raw. Thoughts?
Yep. I would have preferred her on SmackDown, but I guess maybe with the Horsewomen match, you probably have Charlotte tied up for a little bit. So her being on Raw and Raw needing all the ratings help they can get kind of makes sense. From a wrestling standpoint, I would have preferred her on SmackDown, but from, I guess, a business standpoint, it makes sense to have her on Raw at this point.
And Raw, they need more good wrestling from that division on Raw. And she's going to go in there and automatically be the best wrestler they have. Well, women's wrestler that they have. So, maybe she can get good matches out of some of the crappier wrestlers that they have there. I think she had a good match with Nia Jax, didn't she?
I don't. You know what? I don't think she ever wrestled Nia in NXT.
Oh,
I think Nia never got past Bayley.
Oh, I might have just made that up. My bad. All right. Adam Cole, Bobby Fish, and Kyle O'Reilly. They're called Undisputed.
Yep.
All right.
I like it.
Yeah. Did you watch NXT this week?
Not yet. I've got that loaded up for this weekend.
Okay, yeah.
I got a few things on NXT to catch up on.
Yeah, I might try to. I might look at that this weekend, but I just thought that was interesting. Undisputed. I don't know how I feel about it, but if anybody can get a name over, it's probably Adam Cole, I think.
Yeah. I agree.
Ricochet. There's some rumors going around that he's headed to WWE. I think that would be awesome. I think they could really use him. And he's not going to like this. I think he'd be great for the cruiserweight division.
You know what? You say that, but he said a few weeks ago he was asked about being in the cruiserweight division because he has friends in the cruiserweight division. He said if that's what they want him to do, then he's for it. I don't think he really cares. I think he can have a good match anywhere. I feel like obviously would start out in NXT, but the rumors really started to heat up when Meltzer last week in the Observer said the time is right. Ricochet's contract with Lucha Underground ends this year. He's finishing some stuff up with Progress. It sounds like he may have a short run with the Progress title and would drop that shortly. I would say we would probably, and this is a little ways off, but probably expect to see Ricochet as the WrestleMania weekend signing for NXT.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool, man. I'm a big fan of Ricochet. I had never heard of him before. I'd never seen him until he was on Lucha Underground. And people are surprised by that. But no, I don't watch a lot of indie wrestling, unless it's a GIF out there. Indie wrestling's only becoming more accessible the last couple of years. So
and it's funny you say that because my first knowledge of Ricochet, there's an app called Imager where it's nothing but memes and GIFs. And they had the GIF of Ricochet and Will Ospreay doing their fucking athletic display of just flipping all over the place. That was the first time I had ever seen Ricochet, and I had to research him after that.
Yeah, man. I first saw him in Lucha Underground as Prince Puma, and that's what he is to me. He's Prince Puma. I'm getting to know him a little bit more, and MLW actually has some cool YouTube videos out. If you guys go to the MLW YouTube page, because Ricochet and Shane Swerve Strickland, they're actually going to have a match on an MLW internet pay-per-view coming up next month. I don't have the date in front of me, but two really good wrestlers, and they've been doing a really cool job of doing promos for this thing. And Court Bauer over there at MLW is great, and they film it great. They do a really good job of producing these things, so everybody go and check those out. But Ricochet, I absolutely. I think it'd be great. His contract with Lucha Underground is going to be coming up at the end of the year, and I think he has to wait 90 days. So I guess WrestleMania makes sense. Yeah, absolutely.
It's 90 days after the last episode of Lucha Underground airs, which at this point they're not sure when they're going to do it, but it'll be sometime this year. And he does have some things he wants to finish up on the indie scenes. He said he wanted to hold the Progress title, so I'm sure they're going to let that happen. And WWE has been working with Progress a lot lately, so it makes sense for it to be a smooth transition from Progress to WWE NXT.
Yeah, absolutely. Raw is coming to India in December, and if you're thinking that's kind of weird, it's because Jinder Mahal's not on Raw. But that can be easily fixed. They can move him over just for that tour. So, I think that's going to be a big deal for the India fans. I think it's going to suck for us because that means Jinder Mahal's going to be the fucking champion until then.
Yep. I mean, they're going to do 2 shows over there. At that point, you're talking about a 7-month unbeaten title reign for Jinder Mahal. I mean, that's probably one of the longest title reigns for the heavyweight title for WWE in a couple of years without having dropped it for a month and then regaining it.
Right.
And it sucks. It's not to take anything. Well, actually, fuck Jinder Mahal. He's a terrible wrestler. It sucks that
he's very limited.
A terrible wrestler.
We've seen everything he can do already. He's very limited.
Yeah.
And his promos are not very good.
It's the same thing over again. And it's the same story, the way he wins every single time. It sucks that such a long book title reign is going to be wasted on a guy like Jinder Mahal.
So we must say that everybody says he's a really cool guy and a very nice person and a good person. I'm just not a fan of seeing him on television. I don't think he's that good. He's got a great look. He looks great in a suit. He can talk well in interviews, but he's not a good promo. Those are 2 very different things. He's not a very good promo. Yeah. His promos are getting boring. He's got a good entrance. I like the Bollywood Boys. I think they add a lot to the act, but that act is even getting old because it's the same thing every match, and I'm just kind of getting sick of it. He hasn't had a good match ever. I take it back. He had one good match with Randy Orton. The John Cena match I didn't think was that good. So I think it's time to get this belt off of him. But the fact that they're going in India in December means he's going to lose it and then regain it for that tour, or he's going to keep it through that tour. Now I get it. people in India are excited.
Well,
I understand it. National pride is a big thing. I am proud to be an American. That's why I liked Hulk Hogan when I was a kid. Okay.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though. Like, here's exactly why they're doing it. And I can't think of her name, but there was in the Mae Young Classic, there was a woman from India who was trained in the Great Khali's wrestling school, because the Great Khali is a guy who needs to be teaching wrestling, apparently. But he's probably got other better trainers there.
Yeah, it's his name on the school. Let's be honest.
Yeah. For all, YouTube views is one thing people like to look at for interest in an angle, because, clearly the more views it gets, the more people are watching it, whether it be on TV or whatever. If it gets a lot of views, there's at least clear interest in it. A lot of the matches from the Mae Young Classic had, 100,000 or 40,000 views. A lot of segments on Raw will get, 400,000 or 500,000, maybe sometimes crack 1 million. The woman from India who had one match, at this point, it's standing at about 4.8 million views on YouTube, with about 90% of that coming from India. So clearly there's interest from over there.
Yeah.
The problem from a business standpoint is nobody in India has any money to spend. When Raw or SmackDown goes there, the government buys tickets and disperses them. They don't buy shirts. They don't buy food. Like, India has a long way to go.
They don't buy food? Does WWE sell food?
You have concessions.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Booking from an event standpoint, there's more to making money at the event than just the ticket to get in. So you have concessions, you have alcohol sales, you have soda sales.
India, they don't buy food.
Like, I'm just saying, like, there's not a lot of money to be made when wrestling goes to India, even though they have, one of the biggest populations for a country on earth.
Yeah.
It's just not I get why they're doing it, but financially, I don't think they're going to get the success that they're hoping from it.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, it's time for some quick hits. Beautiful Bobby passed away. Not eaten. Like fucking Joe tweeted out. Dude, so you tweeted it out, right? And I'm in Kauai, and I'm trying to sneak, like, looking at Twitter, and I'm not, I didn't want to, but I was like, oh, God, I'm just kind of laying here by the beach. Let me just look at my phone. I'm addicted, right? I look, and it says, oh, beautiful Bobby passed away. He was the reason why we named our show What We Did, or so whatever the fuck he said. Yeah. And so I replied, like, really? And then I started looking it up, and I could not find, I looked up, Bobby Eaton on Wikipedia. I was searching for Bobby Eaton all over the place. And the Mid-South Wrestling guy, give a big shout out to the Mid-South Wrestling guy, at Mid-South WREST. He sent me a direct message. He goes, Bobby Eaton didn't die, dude. It was beautiful Bobby Dean. Different guy. Yeah. I was like, oh, my cousin's a dipshit. And then I went on and I deleted the tweet and then let you know. Well, it turns out beautiful Bobby Dean is a midget wrestler. And can we say that?
Yeah, we can say that.
Yeah.
I think.
What are the consequences if you call a little person a midget?
I really don't know. I can't imagine. I think it'd be short consequences.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say, like, the
backlash would be small.
Right. They don't have a whole lot of leverage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
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 All right. Their anger doesn't get to very big heights, I would say. All right.
God damn it.
But anyway, yeah, he was a midget and he's dead. Hulk Hogan is going to be on Fox News. Hulk Hogan's going to be on Fox News, which makes sense because he's a racist.
This got out of hand quickly.
I know. I'm going to have to edit. I'm still laughing about my previous joke, and I was trying to tell a new joke, and I'm still laughing about my old joke. All right. Keep my bearing. Hulk Hogan's going to be on Fox News. I read what he's going to do. I didn't care. So, anyway, yep, that's happening. Joe, this ought to excite you. Kenny King from Ring of Honor. You're a big Ring of Honor fan, right?
I've been getting more into Ring of Honor, yes.
Yeah. Kenny King from Ring of Honor is going to be a celebrity guest host at Chippendales in Vegas.
Nice. Yeah. Good for him.
Yeah. So you and all your friends can go and watch the show and just have a good time, and you get to see one of your favorite wrestlers.
I will say this. The best way to get women going is to take them to Chippendales, have them look at someone who is much better looking than you, and then take them home yourselves.
When she realizes she can't do any better, she's like, okay, I'll set up this jackhole. Okay.
There you go. 50% of the time, it works every time.
Yeah. Vince Russo's a douche. So let me look. This is supposed to be a quick hit. I'm going to say this I'm not going to go too long on this topic, but Kenny Bolin is one of Jim Cornette's best friends. They recently had a falling out. And Vince Russo has now given Kenny Bolin a job. And Kenny Bolin has a show on Vince Russo's podcast network called The Brand. If that's not a fuck you to Jim Cornette, I don't know what is.
Hey, you know what? The guy, at least he gave the guy a job. He's making America great again
I
by
guess.
keeping people off the unemployed line.
Kenny Bolin was on... have you ever heard of Kenny Bolin?
I honestly have not.
Okay. He's a different guy. He's a different cat. He's on Steve Austin's podcast today. I have not listened to it yet, but I know I listen to Jim Cornette every week, and he was always on that show. And he's no longer on that show because they had a falling out. And he was on there. If you want to know who Kenny Bolin is and what he's about, listen to Steve Austin's show today. And he does about an hour with Kenny Bolin. So it's just, I just find that very interesting that Kenny Bolin has a show on Vince Russo's network. So. Former AWA champ Otto Vance, is dead at 74. Joe, what's your favorite Otto Vance match?
Dude, I don't know, man. I don't think I've ever seen him wrestle.
Well, but you know what? I have not either. Although when I was adding him to our list here because a lot of people were tweeting about him today. This was not a part of the Observer. It just was going around Twitter today. And apparently he is the only man to ever body slam Yokozuna and Andre the Giant.
Damn.
He was a big star in Germany and was their top star over there and was a promoter. And, a lot of American wrestlers would go through Germany and stuff during, tours. And he's also was a power lifter and a strong man. And he actually body slammed Andre the Giant and Yokozuna. Only guy to ever do that.
That's impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so who gives a shit? Joe, what's your who gives a shit for this week?
I mean, does anybody really even need to guess? Fucking Demetrius Johnson versus Ray Borg it's being moved to UFC 216, which I think immediately decreases the amount of buys you're going to get for that pay-per-view.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The guy has negative charisma.
Yeah. Not just that, like his fights are stupid. That division has no real talent in it. And I think if Demetrius Johnson were fighting at a weight class that actually had weight in it, he would have lost 3 or 4 fights by now.
He's not even really in a weight class. He's just kind of in a class.
Yeah. They invented a weight class for him because he was semi-talented and they needed another champion for Fox Sports 1 fights.
Word going around is if beautiful Bobby Dean didn't die, he was going to challenge Demetrius Johnson for that title.
I think he would have weighed a little bit too much to fight Demetrius Johnson.
Maybe, yeah.
And that's not a joke. Little people, they have a lower center of gravity. They tend to weigh about 140. Demetrius Johnson weighs, I think, $110 when he's soaking wet.
Beautiful Bobby Dean. I don't want to. I feel bad for making jokes about the guy, but this is very serious. He committed suicide, and suicide's a very serious issue. We don't want to make light of it. But do you know how he did it?
How?
He jumped off a curb. It's very serious, Joe. You shouldn't laugh. Hopefully Demetrius Johnson will jump off a curb. All right.
Yeah.
My who gives a shit for this week, Dolph Ziggler's new gimmick. I don't get it. It's not entertaining. It's a complete burial of the guy. I mean, he was already buried, so now they're just like, hey, he's not over, so let him copy people who are over. And then this week he copied the Ultimate Warrior in front of the Warrior's fucking kids.
Yeah.
The whole thing is just, I'm not offended by that. That's just wrestling. And his family was in on it, obviously. So a lot of people were offended by that. I don't get being offended. I just made fun of a dead midget. I don't get offended very easily. But dude, this whole gimmick is fucking lame and stupid, and I hate it.
I think it's a shot of trying to get him to be booed as much as possible. I think it's not him trying to replicate other people as much as him saying, hey, this is what you, the fans, like because you're stupid. Like you don't like wrestling. You like entrances because entrances is all you care about. If I were booking this, which I never will get to, and this is the exact reason why they would never let me do it, I would have probably AJ Styles issue an open challenge in Chicago, and let Cult of Personality hit. Keep the hood down low. Come out, check your watch, yell out it's clobbering time, and then throw the jacket off only to be Dolph Ziggler. That would get the most heat that any gimmick he could ever do.
All right. Well, if he does that, I will take him off the list. How about that?
Yeah. that would be the best thing that Dolph Ziggler could ever do.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Okay, that's awesome. Yeah. Okay, I'll give you that one. All right. So, all right, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Joe, what are you gonna be watching this weekend? What should everybody check out?
Yeah, I'm actually going to be checking out this past week's NXT and try to catch up on Donovan Dijak versus Keith Lee. Apparently, it was the best match in America this year. Was rated at 5 stars. They just beat the absolute shit out of each other. So I'm hoping to catch up on that in NXT.
All right. Yeah, I'm also going to be catching up on NXT. I hate to copy you, but I'm also going to be watching that Donovan Dijak match. I actually forgot all about that, but I do remember Dave talking about that. And Joe, I need you to watch this. I know you have the file. You XWT'd the same one I did. But August 5th, 1982, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Dynamite Kid versus Tiger Mask. It is the 1982 Wrestling Observer Match of the Year. We're going to be reviewing that here next week, so everybody go ahead and watch that along with us. I'll send out a link to it if it's already uploaded. I've been getting a lot of copyright infringement on our YouTube page, so going to try not to do that anymore before they actually catch on to us. So, yeah, 1982 Dynamite Kid versus Tiger Mask. Apparently one of the greatest matches of all time. So, have you seen that match before?
I've not, but I'm looking forward to it. It'll be the first New Japan match in our Wrestling Observer Match of the Year series, so really looking forward to it.
Absolutely, man. All right, well, that's going to do it for this week, and until next week, mahalo, bitches!